To- Today we will be reading paragraphs 1 through 6 of the author's note from A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. As we read, we will be asked to answer one question per paragraph, or for paragraph 3 and 4, 2 paragraphs. Some of the details in the story have been fictionalized, but the major events depicted are based on Salva's own experiences. I read his accounts and interviewed him for many hours. I also read other books and accounts by and about lost boys. For Naya's part of the story, I was able to interview travelers who have seen the water wells being drilled in villages like hers. I also benefited from examining their video footage and photographs. Pause here to answer the first question. What do we learn about the novel? How was the author able to write it? Paragraph 2. Known as the Second Sudanese Civil War, the conflict that is depicted in this book began in 1983. Many factions were involved and numerous changes in leadership took place over the duration of the war. But in essence, the opposing sides were the Muslim-dominated government in the north and the non-Muslim coalition in the south. Besides religion, economic strife was an important factor, as the country's reserves of oil are located in the south. That was paragraph 2. Now we are answering what caused the Second Sudanese Civil War. Paragraph 3 and 4 we are going to read together. Millions of people were killed, imprisoned, tortured, kidnapped, or enslaved. Millions more were permanently displaced, unable to return to their homes. Among those displaced were hundreds of thousands of so-called lost boys like Salva, who walked in desperation through southern Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya in search of safe haven. Many of the lost boys who were able to return home after the war found that their families had vanished. Others languished in refugee camps like those Salva lived in. Some were eventually reunited with their loved ones, often after decades apart. For paragraphs 3 and 4, you should pause and now answer the question, what were the effects of the Second Sudanese Civil War? Paragraph 5. In 2002, nearly 20 years after the war began, the United States government passed the Sudan Peace Act, officially accusing the Sudanese government of genocide in the deaths of more than 2 million people. 3 years later, a peace accord was signed between the North and South. The South was granted autonomy, the ability to govern itself for 6 years. In 2011, a referendum took place in which the citizens of southern Sudan voted to secede, gaining their independence from the North. Unrest over South Sudan's oil and its political leadership have roiled its infancy as the world's newest nation. After paragraph 5, what happened in Sudan in the 2000s? How has it changed? Why? Lastly, we are going to be reading paragraph 6 of the author's note, which comes before the novel. The war in Darfur, in the western part of Sudan, is a separate conflict, not covered by the peace accord. As of this writing, that war is still being fought between factions who identify themselves as Arabic and those who consider themselves African. Those two wars, combined with several years of severe drought, have brought untold suffering to the people of Sudan. Now you should be answering question for paragraph 6. What other conflict has emerged in Sudan? Why? Now that you have this, feel free to re-listen or look at the text to write your paragraph.